Hey, AP Psychology, Mr. Gallagher here, on to another unit in the wonderful and fascinating world of AP Psychology, mental process, and human behavior. We're on the unit 4, learning. What if I told you every time I show you this pencil, I can make you cry? Sounds like a fake story, fake news, but it's not. Through learning techniques, including classical conditioning, I could do exactly that. Every time I showed you this pencil, I could make you tear up and cry. Talk to you more about that later. But first off, let's get into a little mini unit of Unit 4, learning. So learning is simply a relatively permanent change in an organism's behavior due to experience. Simple. You change behavior due to what you experience, just like anything, humans, amoebas, anything. All right, we learn by association, and this occurs both in classical conditioning and operant conditioning, which are two main learning theories we're going to talk about this unit. Our minds naturally connect events that occur in sequence. Lightning, thunder, okay? Associative learning, a learning that the two events occur together. It's association, all right? Two different stimuli in classical conditioning. In operant, it's response and consequences, okay? I, of course, see world. Used to love it when I was a kid. But those animals are trained better beyond belief, and they use classical and operant conditioning in doing so. Although there's a lot of stuff going on there that's kind of iffy. All right, so reflexes also deal with association. Classical conditioning, we have a reflex to an automatic stimulus. For example, if I were to get punched in the face, I'd flinch. It's automatic. If I immediately drop the temperature in this room down to -20, I would shiver. If I went to 110 in here, I would sweat. These are automatic responses to certain stimuli, which is key to classical conditioning. Now, of course, the grand poobah of classical conditioning is Ivan Pavlov, a Russian physician. He was actually a neurophysiologist, and he was studying digestive systems when he stumbled upon the concepts we're going to talk about in classical conditioning. He was a smart guy. Pavlov's dogs, don't forget that. And this is one of his, I don't know, dogs must have been much uglier back in the day, or maybe in Russia the dogs are ugly because the dogs he seemed to use are not the cutest dogs. So classical conditioning is associative learning. An organism learns to associate two stimuli. A neutral stimulus that signals an unconditioned stimulus begins to produce a response that anticipates and prepares for the unconditioned stimulus. Now, please be clear on this. Unconditioned stimulus have automatic reflex responses. They're called unconditioned responses, just like the ones I mentioned. Heat, sweat, cold, shiver, slap in the face, flinch. All right? Onions and eyes, watering eyes. Now, in classical conditioning, there's also, you see here, NS, neutral stimulus. Neutral stimulus has nothing to do with anything. In my example, the pencil's a neutral stimulus. How did I get you to cry? I'll tell you later, okay? So you're going to pair the neutral stimulus with an unconditioned stimulus and an unconditioned response. And you're going to turn the UCS, unconditioned stimulus, into a CS, a conditioned stimulus, and the UCR is going to turn into a conditioned response. UCS and CS are always the same thing. UCR and CR are always the same thing. The key here is trying to get this neutral stimulus. Oh, I'm sorry, I messed up. Please disregard that. Let me say that again. The neutral stimulus and the conditioned stimulus will always be the same thing. The unconditioned response and the conditioned response will be the same thing. The key is trying to change the neutral stimulus into a conditioned stimulus by associating it with an unconditioned stimulus. A lot of color there, huh? All right. Oops, sorry. And this is Pavlov's example. Before condition, and the dog, unconditioned stimulus, food makes you drool, man. You get to eat a good meal, you put that food in your mouth, your body and your mouth secretes saliva. You drool like a dog. Automatic. In Pavlov experiments, the neutral stimulus was this tuning fork. That does not make anybody slobber or drool or salivate. But when you pair it with the food, you turn it into a conditioned stimulus. Tuning fork, food, drool. Tuning fork, food, drool. Tuning fork, food, drool. After a while, you can get rid of this unconditioned stimulus. The tuning fork by itself will make the dog salivate. CR and UCR are always the same thing, like I mentioned. All right. NS and CS are always the same thing. Got it? Good. Pavlov's torture device, I call it, because it looks very torturous. Poor little dog. So unconditioned stimulus is a stimulus that unconditionally, automatically, and naturally triggers a response. Food, drool, heat, sweat, cold, shiver, punch, reflex, twitch. Unconditional response automatically relates to the unconditioned stimulus. It's automatic. That's the key to classical conditioning. Automatic reflex. The conditioned stimulus used to be a neutral stimulus, originally irrelevant. After association, it turns from a neutral stimulus into a conditioned stimulus. Conditional response is always the same as an unconditional response. But after association, the UCR becomes the CR. That was easy. Check this out. All right, some more examples here. UCS, a kiss. UCR, sexual arousal. Perfume, the girl or guy wears it. Kiss, arousal. Eventually, the perfume can turn the boyfriend or the girlfriend on. Acquisition. This is the training stage of association. This is when you pair the neutral stimulus with the unconditioned stimulus to get the unconditioned response. And after a while, UCS goes away, neutral stimulus becomes a conditioned stimulus. Generalization, we're going to show you poor little Albert. Doc Watson tortured him a bit. But its tendency for stimuli similar to conditioned stimulus to elicit a similar response. So if I trained you to drool when you saw a pencil, to cry, sometimes I can show you a marker and you still might cry. Discrimination is being able to tell the difference between the stimulus so you no longer get the response. And this is Doc Watson and little Albert. Please check this out. It is a infamous experiment in psychology where Doc Watson talks about classical conditioning, generalization, discrimination, and all that stuff. Okay, eventually, if you take away the unconditioned stimulus for long enough, the response is going to go away. It's called extinction. All right? But if you reintroduce that unconditioned stimulus, it's like muscle memory. The response comes back quickly. It's very powerful. All right, we're going to wrap it up for there. Part 1, Unit 4, Learning Classical Conditioning. That's a wrap.